One thing that has, I feel, worked pretty well post, at least in the last 2 decades, 3 decades per se, is the software or software services or software exports per se. Why do you think that happened? And what has been the role of software exports in terms of boosting of India's economy and the jobs that it kind of provides? If you could paint a picture.
Yeah. So I think you're right. That's the major bright spot in the India growth story since the 90s or 80s is IT. And I think the thing that takes advantage of in terms of your factors of production, your factor endowments, is the elite education, right? So even though I said earlier that the mass education was not prioritized early, the elite education, IITs, et cetera, sort of provided that base of human capital, and then you benefited from speaking the English language, which maybe a lot of the other East Asian countries it wasn't as widespread, and you have this connectivity to foreign markets as well. And so I think that's been generating, if you look at India's export mix, like roughly 25% of exports now are coming from tech, which is huge. And now the risk, of course, is AI. And I think about this on a couple perspectives. If you look at the market caps of the two most important IT companies, Infosys and TCS, Infosys has fallen roughly 50% from its 2021 high. TCS has also fallen, not as much, but if you look at it from its 2024 high, roughly 50% as well. They've stopped hiring, or at least net headcount is pretty flat. And then if you look at foreign investment into Indian equities, the rupee has depreciated quite a bit in the last couple months. Part of it's the oil shock, but part of it probably is expectations around future growth in the relative markets, where people are international investors. They would just want to have their capital in the US, and where the chip supply chain and other companies tied to AI are located. And India's market is largely seen as either exposed or at the very least not involved in the production of AI. And so, yeah, that is a risk. I will say that if you told me that a model was as good as Fable from Anthropic or GPT 5.6 5 years ago, you showed me that model and you asked me what would happen to the world, I would have expected more stuff to have happened because the models are very good when you play with them. But then the headcount is flat and the revenues are still growing at a very low rate. TCS Infosys revenue are growing at a couple percent a year. They're not negative. And so I am, maybe pleasantly surprised by that. I think part of it is, this fact that all the international companies now need some services company to help them incorporate AI. And so, the IT companies are sort of reinventing or rebranding themselves as AI transformation businesses, helping international businesses adopt it. And then the other side of it is what a model can do on paper when you play with it doesn't always match what it can do in a real world live setting.